Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So, folks, this is the second half of a very long interview I did with Aaron Brickman. In the first half, we talk about what Aaron thinks is happening with the stock markets, if he still thinks that there's a crash coming, and more importantly, what everyday folks like you and I can do to protect ourselves if there is that crash coming. So that is already up on all the channels, podcast, video, etc. So if you want to go watch part one first, you can, but it's not necessarily required. So part two, which you're getting ready to see, Aaron and I go into a much deeper conversation about where we're at in the battle of good and evil, the cycles of humankind, the fourth turning, how to survive this, how to save America. And also, Aaron talks with some very interesting information and perspective about why he believes that the globalists are actually at their most weak and frantic state they've ever been, and why this is our opportunity. So let's get started soon. Before we do, though, make sure you're following me on Telegram and Truth Social at Man in America. You can also catch every episode as a podcast if you just want to listen. The links to the podcast and social media are all in the description below, or just search for Man in America in your favorite podcast app. Just make sure you leave us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to reach more people. And folks, by now, we all sense that we're in for a bumpy ride for the foreseeable future. Much of the world is going through a process that experts are calling de-dollarization, and China and Russia are leading the charge. So what does this mean? Well, the US dollar is a fiat currency, meaning it isn't backed by anything of value. The only thing that really gives our dollar value is its demand around the world. But now, and especially under the corrupt and incompetent Biden regime, the rest of the world's getting fed up with the Federal Reserve printing money out of thin air and demanding to trade it for things of real value. So though the dollar is strong right now, it's only because people are fleeing the European currencies, and its strength is short-lived. This is why Russia has already backed its currency with gold, and many other nations are expected to follow. But what happens if the dollar loses its global reserve status? Well, for most of us Americans, the dollar is all we know, right? All of our hard-earned money is completely tied to it, whether it's through the stock market, our bank accounts, pensions, 401ks, etc. The value of our dollars, our life savings, could literally be wiped out in a matter of months, weeks, or even overnight. And look, I'm not a financial advisor, so please do your own research. But I genuinely believe that now more than ever, it's a good time to consider transferring at least some of your wealth into physical gold and silver, real world assets that have stood the test of time. And for this, I'm confident recommending Kirk Elliott. So you can buy gold and silver directly, even in small amounts, or you can transfer your IRA into physical gold and silver with zero taxes or penalties. Now look, I want to be really clear. You don't buy gold and silver to get rich. You do it to protect your wealth. So now's the time, folks. If you want to learn more about this, open up a new tab right now and go to goldwithseth.com, or you can call 720-605-3900 to speak to someone right now. Kirk Elliott's team of advisors will answer all your questions and take care of you every step of the way. Again, that's 720-605-3900 or goldwithseth.com. And the phone number and links are also in the description below. All right, folks, let's go ahead and jump into this interview. I think you're going to enjoy it.
It's a false comfort that we all take when everybody else is doing what we're doing. It's a false comfort. It rarely works out for us. So I just encourage people to think differently and be a maverick. That doesn't mean you're always going to be right, but own your decisions, own your investment, and don't be afraid of being different.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that I think a lot of people that are watching are already in that different class, considering that the herd mentality is just turning on CNN or just turning on Fox News and not looking anything past that. They're sitting down whatever's being fed through the cable. So the people that are already going to Rumble and Truth Social and these alternative media sources, I think, are already really venturing outside.
Yeah. Well, I would challenge you then on this stuff. I would say, okay, well, but if you're the gold bug, don't just be the gold bug. Okay, think about this differently than, because here's what happens, and you know this. We all gravitate to that echo chamber. We all gravitate to reading the news that appeals to us or listening to the podcasts that appeal to us. And it becomes this doom loop, this self-reinforcement cycle. Okay. And so I actually had a great college education, probably the time I went to college. But we read all the classics, and I was political science and history, and I had great professors that would make us read books that we disagreed with. Okay, so I've read all the philosophers. I've read Nietzsche and Plato and Aristotle. I mean, you just go through the list. I've read them all. Okay, and and then we discuss and debate and write. In I was always encouraged to don't just listen to the stuff that you want to listen to. Listen to the stuff that makes you mad. Okay, listen to the stuff that gets under your skin. And if you can logically think through that and discuss those points rationally and tell that person or be able to have counterpoints to what they're saying, then that's a great thing. So don't just get, but don't just tune the stuff out. You're not
Oh, I,
getting, there's not a lot that you get from doing that.
oh, I agree. I completely, and I have to keep reminding myself that exact principle. And one interesting thing is I had Jeff Nyquist on, and we're talking about Russia, Ukraine. And I've never seen such negativity from people watching the show. I mean, people were just eviscerating him because he didn't kind of lay out the exact same narrative that the alt-right narrative about Russia and Ukraine and biolabs and all this. And not to say that I agree with everything that he said, but I think that what happened though is people would just say, this guy's a shill, this guy's, and they would cast out all of his knowledge. They threw the baby out with the bathwater. Whereas I look at it and say, gosh, this guy has taught me more about Russia and Ukraine than anybody else has. Not that I agree with him 100% on it, but I think that people really did themselves a disservice by not looking at that and saying, well, this guy has studied communism in depth and he knows defectors from the KGB personally. And he's written multiple books on the long range goals of the CCP
Right.
and
He's probably listened to all their Senate testimony that they did in the 80s.
everything.
He's covered it
Right.
all.
Yeah. But it was, and again, and I told people, and I think I did an analysis shortly after and said, look, folks, in a lot of ways, I hope I offend some of you in what I talk about
Yes.
because I want to challenge you. Like, I don't know what the truth is. I think I get close to it a lot. And like you said, there's a few things that I think I know to be true. And that comes more into my own faith. And I don't get up on a pedestal and preach that. But I think that we have to really keep questioning every narrative. And something that was interesting that Jeff really taught me in particular was that the communists are so skilled at their propaganda and their study of different cultures that they're infiltrating. They know every single slice of the population. They know the far, far right, what their belief system is. They know the far left. They know, and they've got a version of propaganda for every single slice of society. And so it's really easy, especially I think for people that are more watching the alternative media, et cetera, to feel like we've got the truth and the left is deceived or the normies are deceived or the sheeple are deceived. And that can be a really, really difficult place. And I think that there can be a certain level of arrogance that arises out of that can cause us to misstep and to believe in things. And I've even had people coming out and saying, well, Xi Jinping is a white hat. Xi Jinping is actually fighting against the deep state. And it's like, well, you haven't read this guy's speeches. You haven't read his books. You haven't read what his top military generals are saying. And so, I agree. It's really important. It's really important for us to not be contained within our own echo chamber.
Okay, so my comment to that is we are living in a time of mass deception. Mass. There is hardly any truth. This is not about left or right. This is about in anybody that claims to have it seriously needs to be questioned. My dad, who I respect, super smart, godly man. I have yet to see a day where he was perfect. My wife will assure you, I go weeks without being perfect. Um, That is to say that the best of us, the smartest and the brightest of us, can be completely wrong at any given time. And then on top of that, for people to ascribe to us that we are shilling is ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. Okay. And this is why the elite are laughing. Do you understand how stupid the public is? They are stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. They have us fighting one another. They have us tearing down each other. The right does it just as well as the left. Maybe the left is more obnoxious about it. Maybe we're more polite. Okay. But this has got to stop. It really does. Um, you can be wrong, and I'm not going to think you're a shill. Nyquist can be wrong. I will give, and here's the thing about intent. Jesus never told us to judge each other's hearts. He didn't tell you to judge their minds or their intent because you don't know their intent. Only God knows intent. What he told us to do is you would know them by their fruit. Okay. That means I can tell my wife all day I love her. And if I cheat on her, okay, this is very simple. Now, it's simple, but it's very confusing because the public has yet to start judging presidents or congressmen or senators or elected officials based upon their fruit. They seem to do it off 30-second spot ads. Okay. If we are going to make it through the fourth turning, we're going to need to grow up real quick. Okay. We're going to need to have we're going to need to allow diversity of opinion. That doesn't mean we agree with it. That means that a trained, educated mind can hold diametrically opposed views in real time as they process them. Okay. It's like it's your for the kids that grew up in the 80s like me, it's mental Rubik's cubes. Okay. And sometimes it takes you some time, and you throw out the bad and you extract the good. You do that with me. I'm going to do it with you, and we're not going to get petty and start ascribing somebody as a shill. I want to tell you, the people that are even the people that are shilling. I know the audience doesn't understand how the intelligence agencies work most of the time, or the military. But most of the people who are shilling do not know that they are shilling.
Interesting.
Okay. It's not like they hold a convention and get 1 million shills in the room and hand everybody talking points. Okay. That's not how this works. Okay. I'm not going to go into it tonight how this works, but look, you create, there's a saying, can't remember who said it. I'd have to remember his name here for a second, but he said the lie is different at every level. And what he was getting to is what I experienced in the military. It's that you can get the best of us to commit horrendous acts if we believe in the greater good. Okay. And for different people, that good, so the narrative is different for each individual that you're trying to co-opt into control. Okay. So I'll give you a very dirty example. I can take a segment of the military, the US military. I could have them surround a US city. I could give them orders to kill anybody that tries to escape that city for the greater good. And you'd say, well, what would that greater good be? there has been a bioweapon release into that city and for the safety of the rest of America. This is how you get 18-year-olds to do that. It doesn't mean that the 18-year-old, okay, we've got evil has different faces, and you don't really know it's evil when it gives you its calling card. Okay. It's history. It's learned a thing or two about how to present itself. The devil comes as an angel of light. Okay. He doesn't usually show up with a tail and horns and this caricature we have of him. Okay. He might show up as a beautiful woman at the bar on a Friday night. I mean, this is how this works. Okay. And so this is why I don't really care about intent. I don't care. I don't care what the Fed is trying to do. It's about what is the end result. Okay. Because that's what I have to deal with is the end result. Whether they're trying to crash the economy to return us back to capitalism, I could defend that for an hour. I'm not going to go into it tonight, but I could. Whether it's because they're part of the WEF, whether it's because they're fighting regional blocs for global control, so America can stay as the sole superpower. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I got a 401k and they crash the stock market. It's the same end result for my portfolio. And I think too much of what is being discussed right now, just out there, is just, it's distraction. It really is. We're not talking about the result and then how do we build, how do we move forward, how do we have an impact in our community, how do we have an impact with our family, how do we navigate these waters. I mean, I know that's what your audience is wanting, that's what my Twitter followers are wanting, is tangible. But I feel that the right much of the time just gets caught up into this intellectual exercise, and it's intellectual right now. I can assure you when it rears its head, it's going to be very practical and very real. In the time to prepare for that is now, not obviously when your house is on fire. I think in regards to Nyquist in your comment, because I'm kind of going on a tangent, because this is really, we've got to get our act together in the United States, and especially the right, and especially conservatives, and especially Christians. I mean, we're fighting battles that don't really, they're not even battles, it's distraction. And the main battle, nobody wants to even show up to, right? So they have got the public to the point, and I encounter this with Christian conservative people that I know, that I love, that we're friends with. Okay. You've got a segment of society that literally believes anything they're told. Okay. And I mean, they will defend it like it's the gospel. Okay. They'll defend it like it's absolute truth. And then you've got another segment of society that literally believes nothing. They literally believe nothing. You could tell them the sky is blue and they'd start arguing with you. Okay. They'd think I was shilling, or they'd think it was a conspiracy theory, or they would they can't accept, and that's very dangerous, because what they're getting, if you don't believe in anything, you're going to fall. You have to have faith. You have to have a belief system girded in something. If you believe in nothing, you are going to fall for anything. Okay. Trust me, you will. So I think the conservatives, they have, and this is by design, they are calling everything into question. That is also part of the fourth turning. And it's also going to be a time that we're going to go through as humanity. As if we are successful, I'll posit that. If we are successful at defeating the globalists, Seth, can you imagine what you're going to discover to be real science and real history and real archaeology, in real space exploration, in real psychology, and just go down the list?
it's such an interesting point, and I was hoping we could get to this in the conversation tonight because my wife and I we're working on a script. We have a little kind of project we're working on, a little it's kind of mini um, film or whatever you want to call it. And what we're looking at here is saying the elites. I hate even using that word, right? The powers that be, they know the power of predictive programming, which is giving us a vision of the future and painting that vision. It's like if a doctor, say you have cancer, right? My brother had cancer, lymphoma, came back. At one point, the doctor told him, you'll probably will die within 3 months. Okay. He died 3 months later on the day.
Whoa.
And that's how powerful our minds are. And so, I really want to touch on what you said about, can you imagine what real science, real history, because I really want to pivot back to that. Because if you think of all the movies that have come out of Hollywood about the future, almost always they're dystopian. Mad Max, Blade Runner, Cloud Atlas, Soylent Green. The list goes on and on and on and on. 1984, Hunger Games. Every movie that's about the future, it's about a dystopian future that's ruled by these evil overlords in some form. And humanity is always just kind of, in a lot of ways, fallen to its most base, primitive way of living. People killing over a gallon of gasoline in Mad Max or a few bullets. They've never given us movies that show a future where they don't rule, where humanity has returned to its the beautiful origins and actually has the truth, true science, true history, etc. And so, the more I got to think about that, that's the picture they're painting. That's what they want us to imagine when we see the future, because we'll manifest it, right? We will absolutely, especially if us collectively as a human race, if we all believe that's our future, even our subconscious will walk ourselves right into that future. And so I think it's really important for us to look at where we are in history. And you bring up the fourth turning a lot. And my wife read the book. I still need to read it. I'm high on my list. I see it. You also have behind you sitting there, Peter Zeihan, the end of the world is just the beginning, I believe, is something like that is the title.
That book. Okay, I have not finished that book. I heard him speak on a couple of podcasts a month ago. I'm kind of preoccupied with the markets right now, but I heard him speak. I was blown away by him, and I started reading that book, and I'm like, I'm a history and poli-sci major, and I'm blown away. I'm blown away by that book, and he's reaching some radical different conclusions, right, than what we're hearing. So yeah, that is a book. I haven't even finished the book, and I would recommend that book because it'll blow your mind.
Yeah. I'm like maybe in the second chapter, and I'd already would recommend it to everybody, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to interview him. I'm trying to trying
Oh
to get a
my
hold of him
gosh.
to interview
Oh
him.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that so with the fourth turning, as I was talking about, that as we're right now, and look, I tend to be someone that it's like if there is a 50% chance of famine and there's a 50% chance of abundance, I'd rather prepare for the famine, right? And I'd rather live in a way that there could be that famine. That way, whatever comes, either way, we're okay. And so I tend, I talk a lot about these kinds of things, but I think that for a lot of people, they only can look forward and see one future, and they see the Great Reset, and they look around and they see all these mechanisms of control, and it leaves people in a state of fear. And I think that it's really, really important that we're able to really go through the exercise of what you just said. Imagine a world where you have true science, true history, true energy, right? Tesla energy, et cetera. What does that look like? Because Where I believe that we are, and kind of touching on the fourth turning. I haven't read the book. My wife's talked to me extensively about it. I've heard you talk about it, and a lot of other people. That we're at a. I feel like we're not just at the fourth turning of a generation. It's almost like we're at a fourth turning of civilization, and from the perspective that we're going through a significant change right now. And I really enjoyed how you framed it with your recent interview with Mike Adams and saying that 2022 is the year where they're destroying everything. 2023, though, is the year where they're fighting to see who rebuilds. And this, you also alluded to it in one of your earlier shows with Hagman, where you said that something to the effect of the seeds for their destruction lay in their own plans. And I think that, I mean, I'm butchering, I bet that's kind of what I took away from it.
No, you're doing great.
So I think that a really important discussion right now is looking at the fact that, you mentioned end game, the end game of this system. And it feels like that, it's not just the financial market where you feel like you're on the edge of the Grand Canyon blindfolded and you're inching forward. It feels like the whole world is like that, whether it's nuclear war or famine or, the entire civilization that we thought that we knew to be real. We're now realizing that it was all a charade. Not all of it, but it was just lies. We haven't been taught true history. We haven't been taught true science. We haven't been taught, true health care. I mean, since the Rockefeller and the Gates took over, not Gates, current, Gates, father and grandfather that, really
Right.
took charge of the healthcare system. And
Right.
so I think that, and I really want to hear your thoughts on this, because I tend to be someone that's like, look, I think that we're going to go through a very difficult period where a lot of us will be tested and there's going to be a lot of death in the world. And that just is what it is. You can see it. It's already happening. But I really believe, though, that amidst that process, that we will see the chaos that's brought about by the elites whose plans are rooted in Satan's plans, who's you call the grandfather of chaos. It just is his nature is to be chaos. And amidst that chaos and the infighting between these different factions and whatnot, that we will see their system fall. And I think that they know these cosmic cycles, they know the fourth turning. And I think that what they're trying to do is to set things up so that they're not trying to resist these cycles. They're trying, just like you said earlier, that they only have so much control over the cycles of the stock market. They can't make the stock market do things that are not in line with the overall nature of humankind and just where things are headed, but they're trying to control what they can. So I think that with this great reset, they're trying to control the process of the destruction of the old systems, and they're trying to make sure we land in their systems on the other side, where I believe that it's amidst their destruction where we will be able to emerge. And really, it's the people that are preparing right now and thinking like this right now that we're going to be able to really build our system amidst that. So we get to the other side of it, and they're going to be the ones that are having failed, and that we'll be the ones that are still there. And really, I think, tasked with, in certain ways of looking at it, almost like kind of rebuilding the next stage of humanity or civilization. So I know we've kind of gone from like the micro of like, what do you do with your 401k to like the super macro, but that's what I really enjoy about speaking with you.
Yeah. So, so where to begin? Help me out, Seth. Where should I start? Because that's a big. I mean, where do you want to start in that? In what you were.
I guess kind of going back to some of the earlier things I heard you talk about, how really they don't have the control that we think that they have, or that they want us to think that they have.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go quickly because we got to cover a lot of ground. Oh. Their position is a lot more tenuous than the average person thinks. The more somebody raises their voice, the more somebody stomps their feet, the more somebody acts out irrationally, the more somebody threatens me, I know that they're totally losing control. They're not behaving from a position of authority and strength. They're behaving from a position of weakness. As a as an aside, this is why you should be terrified of Putin, because he is calm and rational, and he just tells you what he's going to do. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't threaten you. He doesn't demean you. He's just matter of fact. Those are the guys you should be scared of. Okay. Not the person, not the Bidens that are, give me a break. Okay. Childish. It's like a parent. If the parent is screaming and acting more irrational than the child, who's in charge? Okay. So I believe their position is extremely tenuous. Now, having said that, they are extremely dangerous. Make no mistake. A cornered, wounded animal is the most dangerous. When they have nothing left, a person who has nothing left to lose is dangerous. A person who has everything on the line is dangerous. And the powers that be have everything on the line. They are resorting to naked aggression. They are having to come out in the open and tell you you will own nothing and be happy. You will eat bugs. You will, okay, they are, the power structures is starting to be unmasked, starting to be revealed. This is when they are at their most vulnerable state. Okay. Because it is raw, naked, everybody can see it. If we continue doing the things we have always done, we will lose in a New York minute. I wouldn't give humanity 10 cents if it continues down this road. It will be a layup for the powers that be. Like a layup. Having said that, I just said they're at their most vulnerable, and they're acting like they're at their most vulnerable. Not only because of the cycles, but the technology that is used to entrain your mind, the technology that they're using to control masses and nation states and communicate effectively and propagandize you is also being used here. It's being used by Mike Adams. It's being used on Twitter. It's being used when you share a meme or when you share a Bible verse or when you share a thought or when you join a network and realize that the person next door to you is in that same network online. Okay. This is technology is a double-edged sword. I kid you not. So the hands of the gun in the hands of a properly trained soldier versus a criminal. Same tool. Okay. And that's what we're dealing with technology. And we even the right and the conservatives have won't go into it tonight, but they really don't understand technology. They don't understand innovation. They don't understand how this works. And so they start picking on battles on the technology, and they totally don't even talk about the entity behind the use of that technology. Right? And it's like they're missing the point again. Right? So having said that, my call, my desire is to see for the American people are historically, extremely passive aggressive. Like they're like historically, it's like leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. Oh, now I'm gonna kick your you know what. Okay. And whether it was at the colonies, whether it was in the Civil War, whether it was in the West, whether it was in World War I, and even up to World War II. Okay. Now, I know historically the nation has always been at war, but that's the elite running their games. The American people in general are extremely passive, and then until you push them too far, and then look out. Okay. So, what I'm waiting for is for that spark. I'm waiting for the American people to go, I'm done. I'm not just done with your bioweapon. I'm done with everything. I'm done with the whole program and literally throw everything out the door. Everything. All of it. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. That is not a guarantee. And I'll tell you this. If the American people do not change their thought behavior, if they don't change their actions, if they don't change their spiritual condition, if they do not engage in this fight is for a limited time only. There is a shelf life on this. Okay. This isn't spam in your grandmother's cupboard. Okay. It's going to hold for 30 years. Okay. We are already 14 years into the fourth turning. At best, it has 6 to 8 more years. At best. So I've told people you are already on the back nine for a golf analogy. This is the back nine. So if in the powers that be are moving forward, it is up to we the people whether we're going to accept whatever solution they offer us. I have a general rule. I typically don't accept solutions from the person that created the mess. Okay. I don't do it in business, and I don't do it on a national scene with these yahoos. Okay. So it is existential. It's the fourth turning. We're here again. The stakes are global. They've never been global. Different countries have been in I won't go into the fourth turning, but different countries are in different cycles up until globalism. And now it's like the whole world is on the same cycle together. And a lot of that is because of technology and communications. Okay. And really because of the impact that American culture had on the rest of the world. Okay. So for whatever reason, the stakes have never been greater. And we're not talking about national stakes. We're not talking about a national existential crisis. I would say we're talking about a global existential crisis of humanity. This gets into the singularity and what these guys really want to do with humanity, which is way past Agenda 2030. Okay. If you think that's bad, go study the singularity and in transhumanism and what they really are all about. Okay. So kind of like the saying on Wall Street, he who panics first wins. It would be better that you confronted evil today versus 3 years from now. The sooner we do this, it's kind of like a recession. The sooner we get it over with, the less painful it'll be, and we can get back to growth. But if we keep kicking the can and thinking we're going to manipulate this, we're going to end up in a massive depression or economic collapse. And this is, you can't, anyways. So my appeal to people is not only to confront evil, not only to confront truth, but it's deeper than that. And I'm putting Jesus, I'm putting spiritual. That's an assumption with me. I'm telling you, if you don't know Jesus, you need to know Jesus. Okay, it starts at the spirit, it then goes to the mind, eventually it gets to your body and to your physical preparation. Okay, but if you haven't prepared your spirit or your mind, you're wasting your time on the physical. I'm telling you, you're wasting it. You can be training for buds and for a SEAL pipeline and doing swimming all day long. And if you are not mentally prepared, I'll make you crack in about 2 hours. Okay. The mental fortitude is to get through those pipelines is where the real action is. Okay. And that's what we're talking about.
The special forces pipelines. So, right.
I've been, I did not go through SEALs. I would drown. I would drown. I'm not a SEAL. I would drown. But I've been through some pipelines, and I didn't think I was going to get through it. I got to be honest. I did not think I was getting through it. So it's not about, and I learned so much in that experience because I learned it wasn't the biggest, and it wasn't the fastest, and it wasn't the strongest, and it wasn't the loudest. The only thing that mattered was this muscle right here. It's your heart. That was the only thing that mattered. How bad do you want it? And do you want it more than life itself? And how committed are you? And how much pain and suffering are you willing to go through? That's all they wanted to know. Are you going to quit? Or would you rather die? Would you rather drown? Would you rather be resuscitated? And if you can answer that question with your actions, then you're probably good to go. But I'm going to tell you, in the heat of it, I saw the biggest, strongest, fastest just fold. Just, and I saw some of the smallest, scrawniest, and I learned so much when I was young about that experience. And I think it's extremely biblical. Okay. You have to be willing to lose your life to gain it. And trust me, you lose your life if you get through those pipelines. I will assure you of that. You're not barbecuing with your friends on the weekends and your wife and kids and having a normal life. That's not why you're in that pipeline. You have now surrendered your life. You do not own it. So, but those are the best guys. They're the strongest guys. They are the most dedicated guys. They're the true America. These guys love America more than the average person can even comprehend. And so that's what I keep telling people. We're going to have to get that resolve in the civilian community. We're going to have to get that resolve and we had that resolve. The American people have had that resolve. They had that resolve in the colonies. They had that resolve in the 1860s on both sides, by the way. Okay, we can debate the merits of the Civil War, but they had that resolve. Both sides, you could not question their resolve. And we certainly had that on the beaches of Normandy and in the Pacific. And we have because of the cycles, we've gone through 80 years, 60, 70 years where we haven't been tested like that. But guess what? I got some good news and bad news. So we're going to get tested again, and it's going to be fantastic. And it's going to be great in America. America is going to have a choice to make. And every individual is going to make that choice. And it's going to be a collective choice, meaning as we operate independently and sovereignly, then it will work out. But we're going to have to get to the point where we're really serious about our faith, where we're serious about our family, where we're not playing games anymore. Because I'm telling you, the elite are not playing games. This is like they're dead serious. And you're absolutely right, Seth. I think it's a great point that you bring up about the movies and the music and the whole casting of the future. Look, I've said this, and I said this on another broadcast. All those movies in the news is demonic prophecy. It is straight up demonic prophecy. Okay. And you can either accept that demonic prophecy or you can rebuke it and reject it and find out what God has to say about the future, what God has to say about who your son should be, what God has to say about, your gifts and talents and your wife's gifts and talents and how to use them. And so when we get that mindset, and we literally do not give them our attention, we literally treat them like they're the 4-year-old that is throwing a tantrum. When we get that resolve and we're dismissive, we fear. It's like when people are ranting and raving, you're not afraid of them. When my mom said to me as a kid, wait until your dad gets home. And my dad just would look at me, that look, right? You know what I'm talking about as a father. He didn't have to say a thing. He certainly didn't yell. He did not lose his composure. I knew I was undone. I knew I wasn't going to last 2 minutes with him. Okay. And that's what we're talking about with the elite is we can't be yelling at them, and we can't be yelling at their minions, the poor slob, across the street from us who has a different belief system. And it can be totally corrupt and a totally wrong beliefs and totally far left. But we have got to get back to where we treat people with dignity and respect. Whether we disagree with them whether they attend the same church or whether they are an atheist and we're diametrically opposed to their worldviews. We've got to have civility and respect and really the things that made America great. And I think when we do that, we disarm the elite. We disarm because they are a very small group of people that really depend on us to carry out their deeds and to carry out their spirit and to carry forward their agenda. Okay, and we can do that knowingly, unknowingly. Most of the time, their minions are doing it unknowingly, and so as a Christian, we know that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Okay, now that's hard to remember in the heat of the battle. Okay, we're all human, but I, I think we've got to get. I think we've got to get back to where we create a vision. Here's the problem with all that they have said, the dark demonic prophecies of the end times or of Mad Max, all that stuff. We have gotten to the point in society where we don't believe in anything. There's no truth. We don't believe in God. We don't believe what we're told. We don't and so there's just this total unbelief. Now think about that. The powers that be are creating unbelief by design inside the population. Okay. And I think that it is by design. And I think that when that comes down, if look, it's only going to come down if we're successful in the fight. I will assure you of that. So, but watch what happens. Let's say we're successful. And now humanity is made aware of basically everything they have known their entire life is a lie. Like everything. History, sociology, anthropology, like everything is up for grabs. Then what's going to be the anchor? How are they going to cope? If you're a professor and you come to know that everything you taught for 30 years is a lie, what are you going to do? Okay. If you're a scientist and you've poured over 40 years and you realize that by design, the agencies took us down a wrong path for some of the science, what are you going to do? This is going to be the biggest cluster the world has ever seen. Okay. And so I think I know that people are being raised up to build the new institutions. I know that God never creates, he always creates a way out. Okay. Always a way out. Let me rephrase that. There's always a way through the fire. Okay. He's not pulling us out, but there is a way through the fire. In what I want to see humanity do, what I especially the Americans, is the world is looking to us. Now, they can debate whether they like us, they don't like us. They love what America once was. They detest what it has become. Okay. And so I really think that we need to get to a point where we can really start talking about, as an adult, we can start talking about what the world should look like. Not what they want it to look like. I don't want to talk anymore about what they want. It's really immaterial. I could care less. I don't want to have debates. I don't even want to listen to conservative talk show hosts talk about Agenda 2030, and I don't care. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And if we are all, look, again, this is giving that 4-year-old your time and attention in the living room. Just walk out. I'll never forget, I got to tell you, because this is kind of a heavy conversation. I got to tell you this quick story. So we had our son, and I remember my son was like, had to be like 7 or 8, about 7. And his mom was leaving the house Friday night to go out with her friends. And I mean, he throws himself on the floor, and I mean, he is crying, wailing, gnashing of teeth, right? As parents, we all know what that scene looks like. He's literally holding onto her ankle while she backs up. I mean, this is like totally over the top, totally crazy. And she's like trying to console him. And I said, Julia, just leave. It'll be okay. Just walk out the door. So it took her about 60 seconds to extract him from her leg. She walks out the garage door. I kid you not, Seth. As soon as she walked out of the door, he stood up and he goes, "Did she leave?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, let's go play." It was like a switch in him had been, it was just it was just a joke. It was a play. But he knew that if he did it long enough, his mom would have succumbed to it, but his dad, not so much. And I think that it's a funny little example. I think we've all had that with our kids, where we're the adults. We're going to tell you what we're going to do. This is our nation. You were elected by us. You serve we the people. We're going to tell you. And if you don't do it, there's other mechanisms that we can take to ensure that this republic continues. In I know, and I'm not talking about revolution. Look, the real revolution that they fear is not guns. That's not the revolution. They got a contingency for that, I assure you. Okay, and I'm telling all the rednecks out there, you're not going to beat them. I know those weapon systems you have. You wouldn't last a day. Okay, that's not the revolution. The revolution was already demonstrated by three individuals: Jesus, Martin Luther King Jr., and Gandhi. Those are your models for real revolution. You come out of their systems. You don't even play in their sandbox by their own rules. This is entrepreneurship 101. When I create a company, I don't play it according to your value propositions, to use a business term. I don't price it according to your pricing models. Okay. This is why entrepreneurs are so dangerous when they enter into markets. They're not playing by your standards. And that's what the powers that be fear, is real revolution of people and when I create a company, I don't compete against you. I don't care what your marketing plan looks like. I don't care what your design process is. I don't care what your go-to-market strategy is. I spend 99% of my time taking care of my business and not looking at what the competition is doing. Okay. I think when we start having that attitude in the United States, and we just are a matter of fact going to do and build and move forward with the vision that we have, and we don't pay attention to their vision and we just completely opt out, what are you going to do?
Yeah, that's it for them.
Like
But that,
this is, do you know, it's kind of like the stock market. People think there has to be all this selling to crash a market. You don't need any selling. You know what you need to crash a market? A lack of bids. If there's no buys, that thing starts plummeting, trying to find equilibrium. Where is the buy price? There are no buyers. It doesn't take sellers. It takes a lack of buyers. Okay. So I use that. So going back to the problems in the United States, look, we don't have to overthrow them. We're making this way too complicated. We don't have to confront them in the hall. We don't have to threaten them. We literally opt out. Done.
how, and I, this is such an important discussion, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. 'Cause I've also played out the scenarios of, people think, oh, they'd never do this. We have our guns. It's like, well, there's all kinds of things that we don't think about. One being, like it's like people say, oh, China would never have invade America. We have our guns. Like, what happens if they drop an EMP? What happens if they cut off our food? Do you think you can, if you don't have enough food storage or water, do you think you can really hold out longer than they're going to be holding out against you? They may not even use weapons against you and they can still win. So I think
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. Though I'm not taking the Second Amendment lightly, right? So I'm also preparing in my own ways to be responsible to my family, my community. But the question that I have here.
Yeah, let me be very clear. Love guns. I was in the military, so I got to shoot all kinds of fun guns. So I've been a lifetime member of the NRA. Come on, let's go. But but the point is that is, you've already lost. By that time, you're lost.
Yeah.
You're done. And I won't go through why it's so horrific if it goes towards that. Nobody's going to win that. I will assure you. Okay, they have war gamed all that. And I will, and that's not what God. That's not. We don't need, again, violence. When you're resorting to violence, you've already lost. And I'm not a pacifist, by the way. What I'm saying is from a strategic point of view, where were you 6 months prior? Where were you 5 years prior? Like, why are you waiting? If you get violent with your spouse, why are you waiting? That's the wrong. You should have been dealing with underlying surface issues like years before that. That's a little late in the game. And that's what I'm saying is, would the powers that be love to take this towards violence? Of course they would.
Yeah, they want it.
Okay. And that is so late in the game. Like, Vegas isn't giving us good odds. Like, if we're going to wait till then, you're done. Okay. No, the battle is, and here's the battle. The battle isn't physical. The battle is for the soul of America. And you're fighting it daily and you're losing. You're losing. Okay. So yeah, we can clean our guns and we can, and I love the Second Amendment and it is there, but that is look, there's a reason that the First Amendment is in front of the Second Amendment. Okay. We need to be exercising the First Amendment way before we're exercising the Second. Okay. Put it to you a different way. Ideas are a virus. Okay. What do I mean by that? I mean, once an idea gets out into the open, it's very hard to protect yourself from that idea. Having even heard the idea, even if you reject it at first, you are still susceptible to it. Why? Because you heard it. It is in your mind. It is just kind of twisting back there. And you don't know when it can be activated by an event or somebody else giving you the same idea, or now evidence being presented that, okay, this is why your First Amendment is primary. Speaking the truth is primary. Speaking the truth in love always, at the end of the day, wins. Always. Okay. And we have too many people that, for political reasons or to be nice or because it might be uncomfortably socially, are just opting to stay silent. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what leads me to the biggest question, which is really why I started doing what I'm doing, is how can we get more people to opt out? Because if only 1% of the US population gets that idea and realizes, wow, this is what they're leading us into, I have to opt out. If you have 100 cattle moving towards a cliff or towards a slaughterhouse, and only one of those cattle sees the slaughterhouse and starts running the opposite direction and warning, if the 99 other cattle go forward, then the whole flock is considered, as good as dead. So, how can we get, and this is the question that everyone I'm sure that's watching right now is asking themselves too. And this is why they're even trying to learn this information. How can we get more people in America to see what's really happening and to opt out of that system?
So that's a great question. That's the real question of the hour, right? So this is how I approach it. And I'm guilty of this. This isn't, I'm better than you and I've figured it all out and the rest of humanity sucks, right? I mean, we're all struggling with this. I love the movie The Matrix. The Matrix is extremely prophetic at a deep spiritual level, but even for the average viewer, there's so much going on in that movie. And at a very surface level, it's not until the very end when he triumphs that he literally sees the Matrix. He literally sees that it is literally a construct. Up until then, he knows it's a construct. He believes it's a construct. He's trying to act like it's a construct, but he doesn't really see it for the true digital construct that it is. Okay. Why do I go there? I go there because you and I are Neo. We are that character. We believe it's a construct. We believe what the Bible says. We definitely have faith it's a construct. We can see it at times, but we're not acting like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Almost 99% of what we listen to is the construct. Okay. The people we think are our friends are part of the construct. It's so deep. Okay. So why do I say that? I say that because we are at different levels throughout our day cooperating with evil. Now let's be specific. Us having, I would argue this, having money in Bank of America versus a local private bank is worlds of difference on the morality spectrum. Worlds of difference. Okay. I'm not going to go into what Bank of America and Wells Fargo and these guys are really engaged in. Some of your audience probably knows. Okay. I doubt your local bank is. Okay. That's one example. So how about education? My wife and I won't talk about it tonight, but we are building very expensive for us to build, very cutting edge, although my son hates that word, cutting edge. But it really is the technology that is going to change education. That's all I'll say. Because there has been a huge homeschooling movement, which is making huge inroads, and it is definitely impacting now this year more than ever. It is impacting the federal money that goes to the school districts because of the loss of those seats. Okay. So it is now being noticed in the news. It is having a direct impact. But I understand also that there are a lot of families that would love to pull their kid from a public school, but because of their financial condition or their work condition, they are unable to. So this isn't, hey, you're sending your kids to public school, you suck. Okay. We have to be really gentle and kind with people and where they're at in their life and the choices that they're making. Okay. And I think that's part of that's part of the conversation. Part of the conversation. So there's the cooperating with evil. How do we extract ourselves from the matrix? Whether it's in education, whether it's medicine, we saw that over the last 2 years. And my hat goes off to a number of our investors who made very life difficult choices in the midst of a job, in the midst of that control. And it costs them personally, right? So this isn't an academic exercise. It's costing people, whether it's It's costing them. So I think that there's a variety of ways that we can begin to opt out of both the education, the medical. My son skipped college. My son skipped college and was working for a Fortune 500 tech company and crushing it. The youngest person ever hired at that company, and he is killing it. And he's making his second year, he'll make almost six figures.
Incredible.
Never went to college. Okay. Now, is he an idiot? No. Did he need college to? Here's the crazy thing. The college grads that are coming out that are now getting hired at that company, they're 4 years in debt. They're 4 years behind him. And by the time he's 23, 24 years old, can you make it? He'll have amassed a small fortune and have years of experience ahead of them. Now, you can't say that for every single job. Obviously, if you're law or medicine or an engineer, so college has its use, but we've got to stop thinking about it. It's a rite of passage, and I'm going to spend $250,000 in debt so I can go drink beer for 4 years. Seriously, if you want to drink beer for 4 years, there's cheaper alternatives. Seriously, right? And that's what it's turned into. So I think that we need to opt out. I think that what I was just alluding to was the way our conversations need to be inspirational. Our conversations need to inspire people. Our conversations can be real. Look, I'm a realist. I don't think I'm not sugarcoating my conversation. I've never been told that I sugarcoat anything. But the stuff we're talking about right now is so dire that I don't need to engage in hyperbole. I don't need to be intense. I don't need to have background music that is dramatic when I deliver. This is crazy. Some of the stuff we see, you and I see, it's like total manipulation on the right. It's a complete manipulation of somebody's psychological and emotional state. And I don't care who you are. I have a problem with that. Okay. I want to present truth. I want to present the facts and leave it in your hands to make a decision. And I'm going to respect the decision you make. Now, that decision might cost you your life. I'm not going to run you down and shove truth down your throat. I'm going to, and Jesus was very tactful. You can see, look, the only time Jesus was not tactful was when he was dealing with the religious. Okay. When he was dealing with the poor, the brokenhearted, the sick, the sinner, the tax collector, the adulteress, dude, he was using kid gloves. And he was delivering truth. He wasn't sugarcoating it. But there was love and compassion because he saw that, yeah, she's an adulteress. Yeah, he's a tax gatherer, but we're gonna change the mindset one soul at a time. I think that brings me to the next point, which is we've got to stop looking for an external savior. We have got to stop this. Is Trump going to run again? Is DeSantis going to look? I really don't care. I could care less. Now, do I think one could be better than the other? Maybe. But if I won't go into this tonight, but if you're putting your hopes on one man, you really don't understand the problem. In fact, if you're putting your hopes on one man, you have no idea the power structure of DC. You have no idea how power even works in that city. Okay. So we got into this mess not because of one person, and we're not getting out of this mess because of one person. This was a habitual passivity and degeneration that's been going on for at least 40 years in this country. And we are not getting out of this mess tomorrow morning because of somebody we voted for. That's insane, dude. Yeah. And we've been doing, I'm almost 50. I've been hearing this BS my entire life. Okay. If we get rid of Carter, we get rid of Reagan, we get rid of Bush, if we get rid of Clinton, if we get rid of the next Bush, if we get rid of Obama, if we get rid of, holy smokes, how many times can you watch this movie? And we're in the destination, we just keep getting closer to the abyss. Like the destination Maybe the scenery and the sets change with each administration. Maybe we like some. Maybe some are better on Twitter or nicer on Twitter or meaner on Twitter. Doesn't matter. Same destination. So I say that to say that now it is imperative that we think local. Okay. You're reading books about globalism and humanity and the books we talked about, and you should always have a big picture mindset. But at the end of the day, if you can't roll up your sleeves and get on the factory line and do what needs to be done, then you're just a CEO that has very little worth. I really don't like the C-suite. If you can't get down and get dirty and show me what you mean, you're not going to last very long as an entrepreneur, that's for sure. So I think we really have to, and that starts with our home, starts with our family. It starts with what are we doing, not what Washington or the politician or the governor is doing. And if we will all individually, this is where revolutions really are. I mean, do you think they got everybody online on Twitter in 1776 and got everybody in on what they were going to do? I mean, this is not how revolutions occur. Revolutions occur because enough people get fed up and do the right thing. And when they do the right thing individually, but it's collective at a moment in time, things change. And so now it's time. It is time. But the question is, what are you going to make of that time? Are you going to be the person who acts, or are you going to be the person who watches? I want to tell you, if you're the person that watches, not only are you not going to get the benefit, I will assure you, you will not get the benefit. Life has a funny way of evening the score. Okay. I will assure you, if you're in combat and you're trying not to get killed, you're going to get killed. You got to let it go. You got to just focus on what you got to do. So if you're trying to avoid making the right choices, life will even the score. You won't get benefits. And more importantly, we get enough people doing that, and I will assure you, we will not win. I will assure it. I think God is waiting to see what we're going to do. I find God, he's less inclined. Told my son this, I've raised him with this saying, God requires you to do your best and he'll do the rest. Anything short of your best is disobedience. And he owes you nothing. And especially if you're phoning it in. If you're not gonna study for the exam, don't think God's taken the test for you. Don't think all of a sudden magically the answers are going to pop into your brain. That's not how God works. Okay. And as I said on Mike Adams' program, and I think this needs to be said to your audience, God works through humans. Okay. If he has to, he'll even speak through a donkey. But he prefers humans. And he rarely descends out of the blue and somehow magically, like we have this crazy, like the miracles in the Bible are being performed by humans. It's a miracle that David kills Goliath. It is a miracle that Esther, for such a time as this, saves the nation. It is a miracle that Moses is preserved in a reed basket and 40 years later comes to, like, we've got to read our Bible and pay attention. Okay, he worked through our founding fathers. He worked through, good night, go study the generals in World War II and the decisions that they were making. They make one wrong decision. You don't think that was God divinely intervening in the affairs of men and giving them the mind of Christ when they needed it? Or conversely, Hitler going to sleep and giving orders to his generals under no conditions are they supposed to awake him. And that was the D-Day invasion. Okay, these are the miracles in history. If you're praying for a miracle, you're it. Okay, and I'm not saying you're it without God. I'm saying you're it with God. We have no idea this side of heaven the impact that we are going to have. You have no idea this side of heaven the impact that you're having, Seth. I have no idea. Okay, but I know this: if I'm doing what God's called me to do, I'm victorious. If I'm very Calvinistic, not to get into theology and stuff, but I'm very Calvinistic in this regard. I believe that when I'm called to speak the truth and I speak the truth, it is 100% effective. Now, for the people that don't understand Calvin theology out there, they'll scratch their head on that one. But God's word does not return void without accomplishing the intent and purpose for which it was sent. So if I'm speaking his word, it's 100%. Its effective rate is 100%. I'm not saying everybody gets it. Those who it was intended for got it. And I think that that's what we need. We need to stop trying to figure out. I could care less how many Twitter followers I have. I repeat that. And I love all my Twitter followers, and I'm continuing to grow them, and God, and that's awesome. And if I can influence them, if I can impact them, if I can help them, but it's not about Twitter followers, right? It's about in the day that I'm more concerned about that with them speaking the truth or standing for righteousness, I'm in deep trouble. Okay. And I think that that's where we all need to get to in our walk and in our life is I couldn't be happier to be alive right now. This is like crazy, dude. We're living a movie.
I think that sometimes I couldn't agree more.
People are like, well, what time in history would you like to time travel to? I'm like, are you kidding me? I wouldn't get in the machine. Like, this is it. This is for all the stakes. It's humanity. It's global. The idea, the video that you put out, and I know you know this from experience, it's global. So we have the saints, we have Paul. We talked about this last time. We got Paul and the prophets and all these guys from the Bible going, oh my gosh, can you imagine what we could have done? Why, God? Why were we born 2,000, 3,000 years ago? So I think that's the glass. The glass isn't, and we talk about the glass. I know I'm going on a little tangent, but the glass isn't half empty or half full. I know that from the Bible. He was with his disciples and he looked and he said, the harvest is plentiful. It's full. It's ready. The fields are ready for harvest. What are you guys doing? Do you know how many people in America are broken, lost, don't understand? They don't even understand they're in the matrix. They don't understand the rules of the matrix. They don't understand heaven, hell. They have no understanding of cosmology, theology. They have no understanding of the basic principles in life. They think that they can live with a guy before marriage and it'll somehow work out. They think they can sleep around and they don't understand why they have broken relationships. Like, humanity is a freaking mess at this point. Okay. And it's not like and we're talking a basic, I cannot believe people are behaving like this mess. And we have the solutions. Like, I've been married to my lovely wife for 25 years. Has it been hard? Yes. Have we ever questioned it? No. Not up for discussion. It's that simple. Now, she might want to sleep in a different room or tell me to, sleep in it. I mean, we're married, right? I mean, we've all had our problems, but the way we handle our problems is completely different. It's a completely different spiritual mindset than the average person. And that unfortunately is very uncommon now. In our investment decisions, look, we're not going into debt and we're not just buying stuff on credit just because we saw it and I want it. Good grief, dude. If that was the case, I'd have a Ferrari and a yacht and a private jet. And there's a lot of things I'd like to have. So we've got to get back to this mindset of, because those are all, everything that we're talking about is let me be clear a different way. In the Bible, you were supposed to speak truth. You're supposed to do the right thing. You're supposed to not compromise. There's all these things that will make for good living. But at the end of the day, they will know you are Christians by your love. Okay. They're going to look at your fruit and they're going to know whether you're a disciple of mine. It's not going to be about the words coming out of your mouth. It's going to be the totality of your life. Can they look, and is there evidence in a courtroom? Is there evidence that you were a disciple? Is there evidence that you stood for Christ? Is there evidence that you loved your wife? Is there, like, where is the evidence? And that's, then that brings me to what we're doing right now. What is the evidence that you're resisting evil? What is the evidence that you're not cooperating with the deep state? What is the evidence? And don't tell me it's because you bought your 30th gun. Okay. That's not it. Okay. So let me rephrase it a different way. I know that being married for 25 years to my wife has an impact on people around me. I know it'll have a greater impact when we have 50 years of marriage. Okay. We don't usually think in terms of that, but that is the message. That has tremendous impact. It has impact on my son, who's then going to influence his son. This is the change. We want to talk about changing America and changing this world. The change is you and me. And when we change, our sons change, our wives change, and especially husbands out there, we are the change. Okay. You change and you watch how fast your wife changes. Okay. It's that simple. Don't be, the guys out there, don't be waiting on your wife to change for you to get your act together. I'm telling you right now, she's watching you. And I'll tell you, don't expect your kids to change if you're not changing. They're watching you. And if you own a business, your employees are watching you. Okay. And I'm going to shut up here because I know I'm just going on a tangent. I'm passionate about this stuff, Seth, because we're standing at the abyss. But to your point, it could be, and it's up to us. It could be a Renaissance period. It could be a golden age. It could be. It is not promised. There will be a lot of pain to go through to get there. If you will follow the advice that I'm talking about tonight, regardless of this country, you in your life and your family will experience a renaissance. I don't care if everybody on your block is sleeping around and getting divorced. If you are not, your marriage will experience a renaissance. I don't care if every kid in school is cheating on the test. I really don't care about those things. The only thing I care about is what you're personally doing in your life, not what everybody else is doing. And if we get that kind of determination and mindset, this country is going to change.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. And you said, you change as a man, you change yourself, your wife will change, your children will change. I think that if all of us realize that if we change ourselves, our country will change. But our country will never change if we can't change ourselves first.
We're it's ludicrous. It's like a Marine on Iwo Jima or Guadalcanal. And he's thinking about Eisenhower's war plans. What? Dude, if he's doing that, he was not going to survive 5 seconds of combat. And that's what we have. All of us are concerned about Trump. We're concerned about DeSantis. We're concerned about Biden. And like, are you kidding me?
Durham or the next.
Dude. And this goes on, and it's not for a day, it's years. Look, if I never hear any of those guys' names again, I'm fine. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. But to me, that's not where it's at. Now, if those guys are elected, they will stand before God and give an account. So then now they need to be taking personal responsibility for their decision making, but no more than I am. No more than you are, Seth. We're all going to be stripped clean and stand in front of him and give an account. And what our wife told us or our boss told us or the way I was raised is not going to fly. Okay. I'm sure God has heard it all. He heard it all before you got there, and he doesn't want to hear it when you get there. So to me, I'm pretty matter of fact that now here's the good news about God. He gives you more than one chance. We get a chance every single day. So if you screwed up yesterday, repent, and you get another chance tomorrow. That's all it takes. It's not a preponderance. It's not like we got to get our act together and be solid for the next 15 years or 20 years. I'm telling you, I think this thing turns around way faster than people have an idea, but it has to happen. There's a verse in the Bible, I think I quote it all the time because I think it's germane, apropos for this hour. The eyes of the Lord look to and fro throughout the earth, that he may strongly support those whose heart is fully his. See, the imagery is that God he's desperate. He is looking down on earth. Who are my Davids? Who are my Esthers? Who are my Moses? Who are my Pauls? Who are my Isaiahs? And it's like, who wants to be on the A team? Who wants to get off the bench and get in the game? I can tell you, with my military background, I didn't choose an easy path because I wanted to be in the game. If you want to be in the game, it's going to cost you something. But I wanted to be in the game. There was no point in being in the military if I couldn't be in the game. My attitude. And so I want to have an impact. I don't want to, and I want to have an impact on my son and my wife and the people around me. And I don't care if I don't have an impact on the radio. I don't care if you and Hagman and anybody else is done with me and that that's not what you get promoted when you're faithful in a little. So if you do the right thing, somebody's going to notice and you will get promoted. This is how the world works like this. And so this is an impassioned plea tonight for people to take care of their financial condition. More importantly, take care of your spiritual condition. Stop worrying about stuff you can't worry. Do not give any energy or attention to things out of your control. That is the most dangerous delusion that is afflicting humanity right now. And it is total distraction. Okay. It saps your energy and your spirit and your mental prowess so that you are exhausted and can't pay attention to your kid or love on your wife or show up to work tomorrow and do a great job. I mean, like we are so preoccupied with the things, with distraction, with the things that are not mattering. We're looking at battlefields 20 miles downrange, and we're not noticing the battlefield in our own home. Okay. And I think that when we get present, and this is all about being present in the moment, spiritually and physically and mentally, if we get back to being in the moment and doing the right thing, here's how I know we win. If enough people do the right thing, you know how we win? Because all the powers that be are doing the wrong things.
True.
Have you noticed they're not good at anything they do?
That's a really good point.
Okay, they like when they do false flags, it's kind of obvious. When now they're resorting to overt threats and intimidation over COVID in the last 2 years. and their whole financial system is failing, and geez, their geopolitical situation with the Russians and Chinese is not going very well. I mean, like, they're not good at anything they do. Okay. This probably has something to do with the playbook they're playing off of and who they're serving. Okay. So we act like the humanity and the Christians are acting like we're defeatists because we're playing some undefeated sports team that's like the greatest that's ever been. These guys are idiots. I mean, really, and I mean that in the most condescending. I cannot tell you how condescending I feel towards the elite. Okay. The only problem is when you're playing against humanity, you don't have to be that good. When you're playing against a country that's apathetic, sinful, indifferent, drugged out, sexed up, like overweight. I mean, like, you just go through you don't have to be in shape to beat them. That's the problem. Okay. So it's kind of, if it wasn't for the stake and for the soul of this nation and humanity, it would be funny. I mean, really, it would be, you could see this being at least an SNL skit, if not a comedy series.
Yeah.
But it's not, because they're trafficking in the souls of men.
Yeah.
So it's not funny, and God's not laughing at it right now. So, but I say that all to say that I don't think it's going to take, but it's going to take more than you thought. And unfortunately, it's going to involve you. It's not going to be all these other people you keep voting for or sending money to or praying for, which is all good. If you want to do that and God told you to do it, great, knock yourself out. But at the end of the day, it doesn't trump what you and I do. And I think when we do that, let's can you imagine? Can you imagine what Trump or DeSantis would feel? Like, okay, let's be realistic. Let's walk through this exercise real quick. I don't care which one gets elected. So you pick one, they're in. If we're not doing our part, can you imagine what that person is going to feel when they get into bed every night after fighting a battle in DC that they fight on a daily basis? Look, I give the average parent about 1 week of cleaning their son's bedroom before they just throw up their hands and just get frustrated. Because the kid's a slob. He's not cleaning it up. He's not listening to you. Dude, we do that as a nation. And then we send these guys off to DC and tell them to fix it, and then get mad at them because they didn't fix it. Dude, first of all, forget the cost of their marriage and their personal sacrifice and all the sacrifice that they make. Even if they weren't sacrificing, I wouldn't want the job. Do you really want to work for people that aren't working for you? Do you really, it's crazy. I think we really have to change our mental. We've really got to be thinking through these situations and going, we got to change. We got to change this whole construct in this conversation. And that's part of what I'm trying to do and implore people. Hopefully your audience gets it. Hopefully this isn't too academic for them. But I mean, I wanted to address the academic side, or not the academic, the practical side in the conversation. I'm glad you've gone to this, but because it's both. It's the spirit. It's the kingdoms. It's the spirit in the flesh. It's like, Jesus taught about the kingdom, but he also fed you. He also healed your infirmity. He met you where you were at. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want you to get out of debt. I want you to be secure financially for what's coming. I want the best for your audience, but at the same time, they could have all the money in the world, and if they're not listening to this latter half of the program and changing, is what does it profit, right?
Exactly. Well, I think that I'll probably actually break it up into two parts and have part
Okay.
one be the the financial, what it means for you, what it means to become a man. Then part two really be the personal responsibility each of us really bear as Americans, and not just Americans. Because I think that there's two really important messages, and that's also what I saw from the first interview with you, is that people love both parts. They love that. And this, I was looking forward to obviously getting an update going into the financial, like, where are we at with all that? What's it
Right.
look like? But then also getting into this because, you're right. It's like, well, let's just say that, okay. It's like, okay, well, I go buy XYZ and I make a lot of money. And, well, what kind of life are we going back to? Because we have to be able to look at how we got to where we are and how we get out of it. And I think that I think that we've really rounded out the conversation with that, which I think is excellent.
Because, okay, you said about getting back, and I made this point on one of the programs. The reason it's so imperative that we change right here, right now, is because we're not going back. We are not going back. Whether you like the America of old or don't, we are not going back to 2019.
No.
It's not happening. They have a version of America. They have a version of the world and humanity that they're telling you they're going to take you. And we need to come up with our own version. Hopefully, our version is that city set on a hill. Hopefully, it is the best of America. Okay. And I do believe that America is the greatest nation that's ever existed. I believe it is an anomaly in history. I believe it is an exceptional nation. That doesn't make you special. That makes it special. Okay. I think Americans get a lot of this confused. Okay. Just because you're an American doesn't make you special. It was what God was doing in this nation that was exceptional. Okay. Just had to address that real quick. Because so many people get that like right over their head. But if we're going to get to whatever is in the future is whatever is in the future will be cemented today. It will be cemented by who we are today. It's not going to be cemented. The future is not determined by our founding fathers. Their future was.
Yeah.
Okay. Our future is not determined by the beaches of Normandy. Okay. Their future was determined. Okay. This is our moment. So we have to decide what future do we want. Both those generations had a future. Had a vision. It didn't include the British and it didn't include the Nazis. Okay. That was at least those were the basic things they could agree on. Okay. And I think that that's what it comes down to. There needs to be some basic, this is why you got to cut people some serious slack. You got to cut me slack. You got to cut Seth slack. There's going to be a ton of stuff that Mike Adams says one day that I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with. But I love Mike Adams. I'm not going to question him. Okay. Maybe he had pizza for lunch. Maybe he got a little goofy. I don't know. I get goofy. There's not everything that we say. And I think that that's the point. The point is, what are the major things that we can agree on as a nation and come together around? Okay, this is where Christianity is not about your end time eschatology. There's much deeper, tenets of the faith when you get into Christianity. They're not up for discussion, and everything else is kind of a subject to interpretation. It's kind of like, we'll find out on the other side. And I think that that's where we really need to get to as a nation, because if we continue to get wrapped up in these personal vendettas, these squabbles, we're going to lose the battle. It's that simple.
No, I agree.
I
think that that's probably a good note to end on, to leave people
all right
with some things to reflect on. And I think that we've been going on for 3 hours, which I feel like we could do another 3 hours, and we could do, we could have taken any one of these singular topics and it's gone and completely done something else. So I think that, even with the financial stuff alone, we'll have multiple updates coming in the future. But I think that it'll be hard for you and I to sit down and only talk about finance. So it's going to be,
Well, you know what
it'll
I
be
enjoy
good.
about these? I enjoy these conversations because, and I enjoy the longer format. Thank you. Because, and we're being very superficial even in our discussion, which is, I mean, it's needed. But, when you get deep into the matrix, it is it's all one. Like you think, when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 15 years old, you think that math is unrelated to history and history has no bearing, and pick all these subject fields in anthropology or whatever it is. Okay. And the older you get, you're like, oh my gosh, it's all, you pull a single thread and the whole sweater unravels.
It does.
And so I think that this is really good for the people to start thinking. I'm not sure people actually think at a macro level. I think most people, I don't think people are very good at connecting dots. It doesn't mean they're stupid. That just means they're not good at connecting dots. Okay. And I think that that's part of the power structures. The power structure knows if they can connect 3 dots, and usually the power structure has this stuff so convoluted. As you well know, having studied it, and that they know that if it's going into one foreign bank account that then has a partner and a law firm that then has after the 3rd or 4th connection, people are just like, they just zone out. They have no idea what happened. And so they can hide in plain sight through deception, right? But I think that having more of a 30,000 foot level conversation and talking about this, because I really don't care about all the inside baseball. At the end of the day, that's not going to benefit you and me. It's really more, and I think voices like yours and mine, and I know God's going to be raising up a lot more. Look, in 1770, did anybody really think George Washington was the guy? I mean, and I can assure you, your history. Right? You know your history. I can assure you, in 1856, they definitely weren't putting their money on Lincoln. Okay. Or Eisenhower, or you just go through it. Or Reagan, a Hollywood actor. Are you serious? Okay. So I love history because history is inspirational. It tells that kid, you can be the man. That woman, you can be it. Like, but are you going to step up? And history is replete with examples of these massive change agents that come out of nowhere. They're not the horse favorite. They're not the leading contender. In a lot of ways, they are literally the ultimate black sheep. And your Bible, so that's a whole nother conversation about God and who he really chooses. But be that as it may, you don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the prettiest. You just have to be willing.
I'll tell you what, people 100, 200, 300 years from now, be looking back at the people that stood up during this time in history. Even 1,000 years from now, they will still be looking. That's how significant this time in history is. That even thousands of years from now, people will look back at this time in history. That's how significant the changes are that humanity is undergoing right now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I was going to say they're going to name schools and avenues and boulevards after you, but I think there's even better things than that coming. I know I love the movie Gladiator and what Russell Crowe says at the beginning, which is what we do in this life echoes through eternity. Okay. That is super biblical. That is a super biblical principle. So it's better than the high school being named after you. It's better than, an Aaron Brickman Boulevard. I mean, that's meaningless. But to your point, it's said on Mike Adams, Jesus will show up when he wants to. That's not my problem. He told you what your problem was going to be because he asked a rhetorical question. But when he returns, will he find faith? Okay. When he shows up, what is he going to find? Is he going to find you dismayed and depressed and checked out on drugs, cheating on your wife, embezzling from your boss, or is he going to show up and he's going to find Seth exercising the gifts that he gave you? Is he going to find me speaking truth when somebody asks? I mean, and I think that's where we really need to get. I think that's my hope for the church, is that the church will get back to being the church. The church will get back to the gospel. The church will get back to being that light, really taking care of the widows and the orphans, really making an impact locally. It's not that hard. Being relevant, right? And not relevant because you gave some topical sermon, right, on a Sunday that you thought would get people in. But you're relevant in your neighborhood, and because you're making impact. So if we get there, if I get there, if you get there, if we're striving individually, running our race, this nation will be fine.
Yeah. I think that we will.
He wants it. Look,
he believes in us. I can believe in us.
Let me tell you how loving. We'll leave on this because I know we got to wrap this up. I'll leave you with this. You can go check your Bible if you don't believe me. God is such a loving God that he did not want to destroy Nineveh. Now, people who don't know about Nineveh was hardcore wicked, but they were more than hardcore wicked. Their exploits in combat, they were beyond cruel. Okay? Beyond cruel. If you have a problem with the Russians and Chinese, you didn't want to go to war with Nineveh. Okay? They were hardcore. So Jonah, as everybody knows, is sent to warn them, give them 40 days. He goes after a side detour, and he delivers the message, and they repent. So now he's mad because he's from Israel. Israel's an enemy. They've been persecuted by Nineveh. So he was kind of hoping. He was actually pretty happy that, his enemy was going to get destroyed. So he's being rebuked by the Lord. I think this is in the very last chapter for this attitude. And there's a verse in there, and it says that the Lord did not want to destroy Nineveh because of the cattle. Go read the verse, Seth, because I know your mind is going to be like, what? The Lord's compassion is even on his creation. Okay, it's not just us. It's the cats, it's the dogs, it's the birds in the air, it's the ocean, it's the sea. It's his creation. Okay. So when he's looking even through judgment, okay, he's not like this vindictive God. He's just getting ready to smack you if you step out of line one time. Okay. And so I bring all that up to say that even in America's worst vile condition, that is contrary to Scripture, no doubt about it, that will receive judgment well-deserved, no doubt about it. Okay. That is not what he desires. That is not his plan A. That is not, he does not want to go there. And that is why this nation has been blessed with chance after chance. Now, the judgments are ratcheting up. Just like a faithful father is going to first ground you, and then he's going to move through. There's a whole list he's going to move through to get your attention. But a loving father doesn't want to go there. Okay? And so I say that to say that he is wanting to support us. He is wanting to bless your marriage. He's wanting to bless you financially. He's wanting to bless you with your boss. But sometimes I think he cares more about our life than we do. And what I'm imploring the people to do is start challenging God in that. Start trying to care about your life more than he does. And you will be amazed at what happens in your life. Because he's not giving up on you. God does not quit. So he's not going to. So I told my son growing up, if you fail, it's not because God failed you. It's because you failed him. So if we don't quit, this is why I'm so absolute in what I'm saying, Seth. If we don't quit, we win.
That's the message.
Think about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we don't quit, okay, I got through my pipeline because I would not quit. I could gasp for air. I could pass out. I could do a lot of things, but I wasn't going to quit. That means I had to show up. I had to work. We're not waiting on him sitting on the couch eating ice cream. But I'm not quitting. And I'll tell you, if we have that attitude in our marriage, in our business, and in this society, if we don't quit, we win.
The perfect message to conclude on. That's it. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for taking nearly 4 hours out of your evening. I mean,
people are going to think we'll blame it on the coffee tonight.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I had some coffee late today as well. So, well, Aaron, thank you again so much for coming on. And I think we'll continue doing these shows together because I think some real gems come out that are really important for people. And I just wanted to remind people, if you want to follow Aaron, just go Twitter, look for A.G. Brickman. A.G. Brickman is your name. And it's brick as in you're a brick man. Like my name's Whole House, like you live in a hole. It's like you're a man who lays bricks. So Brickman.
Apparently, I'll tell you, people all my entire life have screwed that name up. Like they come up with the most exotic way. I'm like, dude, seriously, like I shouldn't even have to spell it, much less you put all kinds of letters in there that don't belong.
Trust me.
It's.
I'll give you one. We'll give you one funny thing. One funny thing
right?
For the parting. I would think I was maybe 9 years old or 8 years old, and I was at Walmart with a friend of mine, and I was with my dad, and dads think are a little bit less concerned about where their kids are at than mothers. It seemed my dad was certainly like that. He was off wandering around. I was off wandering around. I couldn't find him, and I went to the ladies, one of the ladies' clothing counters, and I asked them. I said, "Can you please page my dad? I can't find my dad." And they paged him, and my dad came up laughing. He walked up to the counter. He was just laughing, and I remember so distinctly. And so we're walking outside to the car, and I'm like, "Dad, why are you laughing?" He goes, "Well, son, when they paged me, they said, 'Edward Whorehouse, will you please come to the women's changing area?' Edward Whorehouse." And so I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And he said, "Well," and he kind of gave me a very PG explanation, but that was just one of the many examples of my last name being butchered. So
terrible. Yep. It's just that's well, I can't beat that. Although I will say this, on a gravestone, they even screwed up my last name on a gravestone at a cemetery. We were visiting a relative who had deceased, and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, seriously, like how hard is this? But yeah, those are the little. But I don't have anything to beat that. The whorehouse, that's pretty funny. So,
all right, well, Aaron,
I've always enjoyed. I really enjoy this. Yeah, they can check me out on Twitter. Twitter's mostly economics. So, and I do try. If people ask questions, I will say this. I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. Right now, I can still answer questions. If I can answer your question, if I see your question, I get so many questions. I don't see them all. If I do see your question and it's a short, and it has a short response, I will, if I have to explain Adam Smith on Twitter, I'm going to be a little hard to do that. but I do try, and because I do know people, A, are interested, B, are asking questions, B, just don't know who to turn to and what to
Yeah.
do. And I know that you and I we want the best for people, and we want people, you know, I want them to be able to avoid pain first and foremost. Um, and I will leave you with that. The biggest here. Okay, so I'm going to try and shut up, but I'll keep this brief. Here's why it's super important that your audience avoids drowning. You cannot help people when you are drowning. Okay. And there's enough people that are going to need help without you adding to it. Okay. And so do humanity a favor. If you don't want to do yourself or your family a favor, please think about humanity and try and not drown so that you can be the conduit to help others. And I think that that's what it's going to come down to. In 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 that helping of your neighbor, helping of your boss, helping of your community, even maybe the family that you're the black sheep in and they don't want to listen to you right now, right? Okay. Maybe that's the platform that God is going to require you to go through to have impact on them. Okay. Maybe that's the doorway, because there's nothing like meeting people's practical needs that open them up to more important intellectual and spiritual discussions.
Yeah.
Okay. This is why Jesus was doing healing. People didn't need to hear about the kingdom if they were going to die tomorrow from infirmity. Okay. So let's all avoid drowning and avoid financial dislocation and everything else so that we can really be that light and really help our loved ones when that need arises.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Aaron, thank you again. Have a wonderful evening. And until
All
next
right.
time, take care of
All
yourself.
right. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.